Hello and welcome to my channel. I am a mighty menace! And this channel is devoted to my inner child, allowing him to safely play, speak his truth, and create the TV show he always dreamed about but never had. Today I'd like to introduce you to my new show, Scapegoat Anecdotes.
SCAPEGOAT Anecdotes.
Yes, I'm a nerd. Hello, I am the scapegoat in this story, and the anecdotes refer to the hundreds of stories I have kept to myself for the last 40 years. Before I get into today's episode, I would like to tell you a little bit about myself. For most of my life, I was trained and manipulated by two covert narcissistic parents to always be obedient, to never question them, and that everything they do, even if it may seem wrong, is always good for my well-being. And if I'm ever bad, which apparently according to them was all the time, I would get physically and emotionally abused, to put me back into my place, of course. Years of confusing and mostly unwarranted punishment during my formative years led me to being a child with no inner compass, low self-esteem, incredibly high anxiety, and depression. All things I still struggle with, even in my 40s. Why do I tell you this? Well, after a few years ago, I finally woke up to just how bad my childhood was and how it had affected every portion of my life without me even being really aware of it. In discovering this about myself, I started to watch a lot of YouTube videos having to do with childhood trauma and narcissistic personality disorder, and those videos helped me with my decision to go no contact with my parents and my family and heal permanently. Something I didn't see on YouTube that I wanted to see more of were real stories of personal trauma and how those individuals may have worked through it. So I have decided to fill that role, to raise awareness and discuss my own traumatic stories with you all here. And since I am a professional actor, I'm going to act out the stories as I remember them. Talk about how the story affected me and what I learned from it as a way to take my personal power back and educate others who may feel like they are waking up to the same type of abuse. So, without further ado, I present to you today's featured episode of Scapegoat Anecdotes. Knives Out.
Ow! Mom! Sister just scratched me!
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did. I have blood
You
streaks.
flicked me with your finger. Mom, he flicked me with his finger.
What? Twice! Ow! Now that's 3 times! Mom!
Do
please
something,
do
Mom.
something
Sister,
about it.
you're a
baby. You're nothing but a baby.
I am not a baby!
Stop calling me a baby! I can't, Mom, make him not. He keeps calling me a baby and he won't stop. He's making noises. Stop it.
Why don't you two just kill each other?
What? Your parents never threw knives at you before? All joking aside, if your parents did throw knives at you or other things similar to that, please tell me about it in the comments, because I'm under the impression that I'm the only child in the world who had knives thrown at them, and I don't want to be under that impression, so please write in the comments. Please write in the comments if you feel safe enough to write in the comments, let me put it that way. There were several times during my childhood and beyond that my mother would do something that would make me question her ability to be safe and healthy as a parent. This is one of those times. I remember sitting there and looking at my sister and not knowing exactly how to react, so both of our responses were to laugh uncomfortably, all while your stomach drops and you think to yourself, wait, aren't we the children? What just happened? I had already classified my dad as someone who was unsafe most of the time, as he had an anger that would go from 1 to 1,000 in the blink of an eye, and was prone to lashing out on my backside with a variety of household weapons. I had cast my mother as the safe parent, or the safer parent. She was easier to calm, that I could use my weapons of humor and strategic eggshell tiptoeing to remain safe. But it was moments like these that made me feel like I didn't have any safe parents, keeping me insecure in my own home and adding to my confusion and anxiety. What I would later learn in healing myself with shadow work and therapy is that neither of my parents were never really the safe one. And I was dealing with malignant, covert, narcissistic parents that had their own unhealed childhood trauma that they would often mention to excuse their behavior, but never sought help for. Although I knew that my mother was in the wrong here, my parents gaslit my sister and I so often to believe that they were never wrong and could never be wrong, that it was nearly impossible not to feel guilty or even at blame for what happened. Yeah, she did throw heavy dinner knives at us, her own children, but we were fighting and being loud, so you really can't blame her. Yes, you can. She's the adult. But when you're a child who was raised in this environment, it is so hard to see clearly the abuse that is taking place right before your eyes. And if you do see it, you're told by the very people that are supposed to be your caretakers that your eyes are deceiving you. That what you see as abuse and unfairness is actually just a trick of the mind. And if I was ever to seek help from other adults or family members, I would get, well, what did you do to provoke it? When I was really young, before I knew any better, I used to call my parents out for what I felt was abuse. And they would laugh at me as they talked about how horrible their own childhood abuse was and how my sister and I should thank our lucky stars that they're our parents because they treat us so much better than their parents ever did. Physical and emotional abuse that is supposedly watered down is still abuse. My sister and I used to bring this story up to my mom when we were adults at family get-togethers, since it's the most obvious example of my mom doing something horrible to us, and with us being adults now, we could no longer be punished for bringing it up. The conversation would often start with, remember when Mom threw knives at us? And we would talk about it in order to watch my mom squirm in her seat because she had absolutely no excuse for her behavior. The last time we brought it up, I distinctly remember her pouting, folding her arms, and leaning back in her chair, muttering to herself, "I was a good mother." Still waiting on an apology or some sense of ownership regarding what she did, but I'm not holding my breath because I will die. I realized just how unhinged my mom must have been to throw knives at us that day. When this actually happened, metal knives were hitting and sliding down a very nice wooden kitchen table. My wife and I have an IKEA wooden kitchen table, and I didn't even feel comfortable throwing metal knives onto that for fear of the damage. I decided instead to use a folding table and a cheap tablecloth as to not cause any real damage. I mean, my parents would throw a tantrum if anything got moved or dirtied or wrinkled or our rooms were messy, whatever. So to do something so unhinged like this, she must have been in a very special mindset that day. But in playing her as someone who had just had enough noise for one day, I think I captured how it played out originally, and I was able to understand how someone could get to the point of throwing knives at their own children. Not that I recommend it, but I think I got a deeper perspective. Do I think that she should have done it, or that she was a safe enough parent to raise healthy children? I don't. Playing my sister in this video was an interesting task, and even though I know I can only do so much to appear as an 8-year-old girl, I think I nailed it! I think this might go without saying, but apparently it needs to be said because I didn't believe it for the longest time, but if you had knives thrown at you by a family member, that is wrong. I can't believe I even have to say that. That is abuse. That was a dereliction of their duty to keep you safe. It doesn't necessarily mean that you had evil parents, but if they did this to you, I think we can all agree that this is not a sign of good parenting. And if this or something similar happened to you as a child, I see you. You didn't deserve it, and it doesn't make you a bad person because it happened. As a child, you are not responsible for the emotions of your parents. They are responsible for being mature enough to handle their own emotions and for raising you in a loving and safe environment. They gave birth to you, making them responsible for your well-being and your happiness. It is not the other way around, even if narcissistic parents try to make it that way. And if you made it to the end of this video with me today, I want you to know how much I appreciate you. So if this content resonates with you, or you know someone that this content might help, please spread the word and like and subscribe to my channel. I currently have 6 subscribers and I'm dying to reach a goal of double-digit numbers. I know this is a touchy subject, but I would love to know all about your own personal experiences with childhood trauma or narcissistic parents. Have you had knives thrown at you or something similar happen? I want to hear all about it in the comments. And if you didn't have parents that threw knives at you, congratulations. It appears like you might have a great family. Thanks for watching. I am a mighty menace, reminding you that no one in this world is more important than you. So treat yourself as such. Until next time.